Hey guys, it's Goosebumps Completionist, and today I'm bringing you another short story versus episode video. And we're going to be discussing an old story, book versus episode. Yes, the episode case here is My Best Friend is Invisible, but if you turn it over on the back, it features an old story. I don't have the Bride of the Living Dummy an old story VHS combo, so I'll be using this for the video. And an old story, for those of you that don't know, is a short story adaptation done in Still More Tales to Give You Goosebumps, which is special edition number 4 in the Tales to Give You Goosebumps series. I reviewed this book quite a long time ago, but if I had to rate the short story, since I don't really rate the short stories individually in my reviews that in depth, I would probably give the short story in this collection a 5 out of 5, and I gave the episode a 4.6 out of 5. In a lot of regards, I think they're evenly matched for the most part, but I think I have a winner, and I'll get into that near the end. But I really enjoy this story, even though it's definitely one of the more divisive short stories and memorable short stories. It's also one of the more divisive episodes and memorable episodes, maybe for the right and wrong reasons. And I know plenty of people that don't like this. I'm not mad at you if you don't like this. I know I really enjoy it and I get a kick out of it, but I'm able to see it in a different light than most people see it. So, like I said, I understand, but just hear me out, okay? So, yeah, so in these short story versus episodes, it's very similar to my book versus episodes. We go over things about the story, mainly with the characters, go over the characters, which ones I think were done better here or there. We're going to go into the overall plot, which one do I think has a better overall plot. We'll go over into atmosphere, which one sold the atmosphere better. Sometimes I'll go over aesthetics, if there's different aesthetics. And for this specific story, we will be going over aesthetics because there are differences. So we'll be going over that. And then we're going to be going over the climax, which one I think had a better climax. And then the ending, which one I think had the better ending. Okay, so let's get into the characters first. And let's start off with Tom and John, right? Tom and John essentially are a pair duo here. And I'm going to start off the bat. I think they're quite deadlocked and even. I think the actors who played Tom and John in the episode did a very well done performance, especially with the makeup they had for the show. It looks great and phenomenal. As well, the book Tom and John are really good. It sells those fears of turning old while you're too young and child trafficking, stealing your innocence. They both come across essentially the same. So Tom and John get an equal tie here. I guess we'll go over Aunt Dahlia, Miriam, and Lillian next. So we got Miriam and Lillian are kind of a pair duo here. And honestly, the short story does them pretty well. They serve their purpose in the short story. But the episode has, I don't know, the performances from the women who played Miriam and Lillian are just very memorable to me. And their performances really highlighted the characters to a point where I think I prefer them in the episode over the short story. So I'm going to give the edge to those two in the episode. But now we have Aunt Dahlia, who is arguably one of my favorite Goosebumps villains, just because of how realistic she's portrayed and comes off. She's a very sinister villain, you know, very diabolical, very methodical. In the short story, she's fantastic. In the episode, she's fantastic. But I do have a preference. In the episode, if you watch my episode review, there is an added layer to context that was in the short story that I really loved that's missing. And the short story shows it in that the boys think that this Dahlia woman is their aunt they've never heard of, but the parents reveal that they thought that they were each other's aunts, right? So they realize that they let a complete stranger babysit their kids. And I think that adds a different layer to the Dahlia in the short story and makes it more sinister. So I'm going to give the edge to Dahlia to the short story. Very well done. Very memorable. It's a poignant story. It's easily one of the more recognized short stories in the entire Tales series because of the way Dahlia is written in here. Very good. So let's get into the overall plot. Now, there are some differences here, mainly dealing near the end of the story. For the most part, the stories, in both ways you go, will play out the same, minus the context issues near the end with the episode and the story. In the short story, they do differ. But the main difference, I can tell you, comes down to the ending of the short story and the episode. As in the episode, it ends on an ambiguous ending, with John maybe in some type of trouble, with maybe no real cure, since the cure to John's issue presumably could have been thrown away or destroyed. And the short story is very ominous, where Tom is at lunch the next day and he sees this girl about to eat some prune cookies, and there's an implication going around that maybe there's a bigger child trafficking ring out there than the story let on. And they're both really memorable in their own regard. And I guess we're going to kind of cheat here and do the ending and overall plot at the same time. So yeah, I'm going to cut the ending and the overall plot into the same focus here. I think I'm going to give the edge to the short story. The short story definitely leaves it on a more darker note. I do really love the ambiguous ending of the episode, but I just think the short story is better. So yeah, the short story wins out there for the overall plot and the ending. Okay, so let's get into the atmosphere. No real need to compare them. They're pretty much deadlocked. The atmosphere of them meeting Aunt Dahlia, eating prune cookies, getting older. Now, the level of them eating prunes is more progressed in the short story, as in the episode, they really only, I think, eat prune cookies once or something. But other than that, the atmosphere is still the same. Those fears I keep bringing up are identical. Fears of getting old too early and child trafficking kind of blending in together. It's prevalent in both. So the atmosphere is pretty much deadlocked. Down to aesthetics, though, there are some difference in the aesthetics. And the big difference is the cure to the prune effects. In the short story, it is anti-wrinkle cream. In the episode, it is baby food. I think for the symbology of the story, I think the better one of the two is the episode with the baby food. I do prefer the baby food over the anti-wrinkle cream all day. It makes more sense. It's less silly. Arguably more silly if you view baby food as silly, but if you're talking in terms of edible food, it seems like a more realistic cure. So, yeah, the aesthetics go to the episode. Now we're getting down to the climax. Like I said, we've already gone on the overall plot ending, so we're going to end it here on the climax. The climax is more so the same, right? Now, which one do I think did a better job displaying the climax? I'm thinking I'm going to give it to the episode, and here's why. They both essentially do the same thing, but one thing the episode ties in is the eating of the baby food, and then having that climactic finish, right? The climax is, I think, more organic feeling than the episode. I mean, the short story, it's more organic feeling in the episode. So for that, I have to get the edge to the episode for the climax. And yeah, like I said, for the ending, on the other hand, I give it to the short story. So yeah, that's basically my thoughts on an old story. Now, if I had to pick a favorite, now this one is more close than it might seem. I gave one a perfect 5 and one a 4.6. You might think it's more of a runaway, but it's actually pretty hard to decide here. They're kind of evenly matched in most regards. But if I had a preference overall, I have to give it to the short story itself. So I'm going to declare the short story as superior. And it comes down to the effectiveness of the ending of the short story for me. With the whole reveal of Aunt Dahlia not really being a family member, and the ending we got with Tom in the lunchroom is way more impactful than the ambiguous ending of the episode, in my opinion. And that was pretty much the deciding factor for me. I still recommend both. This is a book franchise. You need to read the short story first, then watch the episode. It's going to make you feel a certain way. This is definitely one of the more divisive episodes in short stories. You might love it, you might hate it. Just know that before you go into it. But I recommend trying it. So yeah, that's an old story. Let me know down in the comment section if you have read or watched this story. Which one do you prefer? Do you prefer the short story or do you prefer the episode? I'm dying to know. And I'll see you next time.